The sound that would haunt Chloe Anderson's dreams for years wasn't a scream or a shout, but the crisp, condescending clink of her mother's champagne flute against her cousin's. A sound that pierced the humid air of their backyard in Macon, Georgia, during Chloe's own high school graduation party. A party that should have been a celebration of her top 5 percentile finish and full scholarship to state college, but had instead become a public tribunal. Standing there in her simple, discount store dress, the one she'd carefully ironed that morning, Chloe felt her smile freeze as her mother, Patricia, a woman whose love had always been conditional on achievement, raised her glass not to her, but to her cousin Jessica, a community college student already engaged to a boy from a good family. To Jessica, Patricia announced, her voice carrying over the chatter of relatives and neighbors. Who understands a woman's real place? Building a family, not chasing fantasies. Unlike my Chloe, she continued, her eyes sweeping over Chloe with a dismissive flicker, who thinks books are a career. Let's be honest, sweetheart. You're soft. You're emotional. You'll never have the spine for a real career. Never wear a uniform that commands respect. You'll never succeed in anything that requires grit. You're meant for quiet, little jobs. You'll amount to nothing, and it's a mother's duty to say it before the world does. The backyard fell into a stunned, complicit silence, broken only by Jessica's smug, pitying smile. Chloe felt the heat of 100 eyes on her skin, the weight of the scholarship letter in her pocket, turning to ash, her vision blurring with hot, helpless tears that traced paths of shame down her cheeks. And in that moment, as her mother's prophecy hung in the Georgia air like a verdict, something inside Chloe, the last fragile thread connecting her to the need for parental approval, snapped cleanly, silently. She didn't run, she turned with a mechanical slowness, walked past the buffet table laden with food she'd helped prepare, through the screen door that slammed shut behind her like a full stop, up to her childhood room that now felt like a museum of her own inadequacy, and with hands that trembled not from sadness, but from a cold, gathering fury. She packed a single duffel bag with essentials, left the scholarship acceptance letter torn neatly in half on her bed, and slipped out the back gate as the party laughter resumed, her heart a drum of solitary, echoing resolve. The Greyhound bus to Atlanta that night was a rolling tomb, the other passengers' faces blurred by her silent, streaming tears. The lights of Macon shrinking behind her, each mile a step away from nothing, and towards something she could not yet name, arriving in the vast, indifferent anonymity of the city, with a 40112 in her pocket, the ghost of her mother's voice her only companion. The first year was a study in survival's grim arithmetic. A dingy room in a boarding house that smelled of stale grease and despair. A job cleaning office buildings from midnight until dawn. The chemical sting of industrial cleaner in her nostrils. Her body aching with a fatigue so deep it felt spiritual. Her diet a rotation of instant noodles and dollar-store canned beans. The loneliness a cold, constant presence in her chest even amidst millions. She moved through Atlanta like a ghost, working a second job as a daytime waitress in a noisy diner where customers' snaps and condescension were a daily echo of her mother's tone, saving every quarter and dime in a coffee tin labeled "Scape." Her only solace the public library's silent halls, where she'd read not for pleasure, but for strategy, poring over biographies of pioneering women in the FBI, the Secret Service, the Diplomatic Security Service. Studying the paths to authority, her hunger for more than food becoming a focused, burning thing. When Atlanta's opportunities dried up, she followed the bleak migration of the struggling to the sun-bleached strip malls of Phoenix, Arizona, where the heat was a physical weight and the jobs were just as transient. Data entry in a windowless cubicle farm, nighttime inventory at a cavernous warehouse, each role teaching her the architecture of American obscurity, the art of being overlooked, her mother's words, quiet, little jobs, a taunt she metabolized into fuel, her exterior calm belying the furnace of determination building within. Phoenix turned to a stint in Denver, where the mountain air did nothing to lift the chill in her soul, a job as a hotel concierge, where she mastered the art of smiling service while dying inside, watching men and women in sharp business suits or official uniforms move with an authority she coveted. They're bearing a silent rebuke to her own invisibility. And it was there, in a Denver library, reading a pamphlet on federal law enforcement careers, that the vague something she was moving toward crystallized into a single, daunting word: special agent. The path was not for the soft or emotional, the pamphlet warned. It was for the disciplined, the resilient, the patient. She looked at those words and saw not a barrier, but a blueprint. The next 5 years became a single-minded campaign waged in silence, using her meager savings to enroll in online criminal justice courses, studying until her eyes burned after double shifts. Her social life a barren wasteland. Her entire existence funneled into improving her mind. Her body, her eligibility. Running miles in worn out sneakers in the dark. Practicing interviews in the mirror. Building a resume of relentless, unglamorous work. The day she submitted her application to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, her hands were steady, her heart a calm, determined pump. She was no longer the crying girl from Macon. She was a candidate. And when the acceptance letter came, she held it, allowed herself one single, shuddering breath that was part sob, part victory cry, before the real work began. The training in Glencoe, Georgia, was a controlled hurricane designed to wash away the unworthy. A symphony of shouted instructions, punishing physical tests, complex legal briefings, and psychological stress that probed every vulnerability. Chloe did not just endure it, she thrived. The emotional neglect of her childhood had built a wall behind which she could retreat to find calm. The public humiliation had calloused her to external judgment. She shot with a calm, clinical precision that topped her class, mastered constitutional law, excelled in crisis simulation, her quiet intensity earning the wary respect of instructors, who noted her files simply. Unshakable. Leads by doing. She graduated not with fanfare, but with a quiet certainty, pinning the badge of a special agent on her crisp, new suit. The uniform of the Department of Homeland Security. Her first posting in the bustling field office in Seattle. A world of gray rain and complex financial crime investigations. Her career was a testament to meticulous, quiet accretion, the long, patient hours tracing illicit funds, the cultivation of sources, the careful building of cases that led to arrests that never made the news, but strengthened the fabric of the law. Each successful investigation, a brick in the fortress of her professional reputation. She earned promotions not through politics, but through a granite reliability, her authority growing as she led small teams, then larger task forces, her name spoken with respect in the halls of the Seattle Federal Building, her personal life still starkly minimal, her energy devoted to the work, to the slow, steady construction of a life her mother could not have imagined. She bought a small, neat condo with a view of the Puget Sound, a car that started every time, a wardrobe of tailored, professional clothes, each purchase a silent, satisfying negation of her past of lack. The call that would set the final stage for her silent reckoning came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Her unit was assigned to provide security and logistical oversight for a regional Homeland Security conference for private sector partners, and the venue, due to last-minute logistics, had been moved to a convention center in Atlanta, Georgia. The primary liaison from the hosting committee, the coordinator for all the corporate attendees, was listed as Patricia Anderson, now a project manager for a large security firm. Her mother, Chloe, accepted the assignment with the same detached professionalism she applied to any case, her pulse steady. For this was not a reunion, it was an operational detail. She arrived at the Atlanta conference not as a daughter, but as Supervisory Special Agent Anderson, in the authorized dark blue uniform of her service, her badge polished, her hair in a severe, professional bun, her posture radiating a calm, unimpeachable authority. The opening session was in a vast, carpeted hall. Chloe stood at the side of the stage, scanning the crowd of corporate executives and local officials as her colleagues spoke. And then she saw her. Patricia Anderson, dressed in a fussy, expensive suit, was shepherding a group of attendees to their seats near the front, her demeanor one of self-important bustle. Her eyes swept the stage, passed over the uniformed agent, and then snapped back, locking onto Chloe's face. The change was instantaneous and total. All the color drained from Patricia's face, leaving her makeup stark and garish. Her lips, parted to give an instruction, froze. Her hands, clutching a tablet, fell slowly to her sides. Her eyes widened, not in recognition at first, but in sheer, disbelieving shock, traveling from Chloe's face, down to the badge on her chest, the nameplate, the insignia of rank on her shoulders, and back to her eyes. The same eyes that had once wept in her backyard, now clear, calm, and utterly unreadable. Time seemed to suspend in the space between them. Chloe held her mother's gaze for 3 long seconds, her expression one of polite, professional blankness, the expression she used for strangers. She gave no smile, no nod of recognition, no flicker of the past. She simply observed, as she would any attendee, before turning her attention back to the podium. From her periphery, she watched as the full comprehension hit her mother like a physical blow. Patricia's knees seemed to buckle slightly. She groped blindly for a chair and sank into it, her tablet clattering to the floor unnoticed. Her hands came up to cover her mouth, but it was too late. Her face, that mask of perfected control, crumpled entirely. Shoulders hunched, she began to cry, not delicate tears, but silent, heaving sobs that shook her frame, the tears smearing her makeup, as she stared unseeing at the patterned carpet, the reality of her daughter, the one she said would wear no uniform, would amount to nothing, would never succeed. Standing before her, as the literal embodiment of federal authority, rendering her own life's narrative a pathetic fiction. The people around her shifted uncomfortably, whispering, but Patricia was lost in a private vortex of shattered pride. Chloe completed her security sweep, conferred quietly with a colleague, and exited the hall via a side door, her duty done. She did not seek her out afterward. She did not answer the 3 frantic voicemails that later appeared on her private cell phone, messages choked with tears and garbled apologies. The revenge was complete. It had been delivered not with a shout, but with a presence, not with an accusation, but with an achievement, not with violence, but with impeccable, lawful service to her country. Her mother's tears were not her victory. Her victory was the uniform she earned, the respect she commanded, the life she built with her own 2 hands and unbreakable will. In the quiet of her hotel room that night, looking out at the Atlanta skyline, Chloe felt no elation, only a profound, settled peace. The crying girl in the yellow dress was finally, irrevocably, laid to rest. She had taken the nothing she was given and built herself into an American something. A woman of substance, of quiet strength, of dignified power, proving that the most lasting monuments are built not from the bricks of others' approval, but from the silent, relentless mortar of one's own resilient spirit.